The movie starts with the narration of the filmmaker recalling the previous part of the film in which they documented a boy named Gary Hinge, whose mysterious disappearance in northeastern Nevada left the world unhinged. While searches for Gary were continued, they found out some other alarming things. It is revealed that in the same year, another girl named Manoura was found lifeless in her trailer house. Another woman named Ameliana went missing from the highway the same night. Hence, this pseudo-documentary is focused on the mysterious demise of Manoura and the disappearance of Ameliana. Following that, a recorded voice call to 911 is played, in which they are receiving calls from an unknown person. They are not responding to the operator, indicating they might be in someone else's presence. The operator instructs the person to push the dial buttons if they are not in the position to speak. The person pushes the dial button, confirming they are in serious trouble. Tracing the phone call, the operator dispatches Unit 6 to go check up on the person they have received the call from. 7 minutes after the call, a person from Unit 6 reaches a trailer house. He reports that he can see lights in the rear part of the trailer. Before barging in, he requests 911 to send more help. While staying on the call with the 911 operator, he breaks the door and walks in. At this point, the intensity of the situation can be noted as he panics and requests for immediate medical help. After that, a journalist named Gal Roberts opens Minerva's case with her statement. She starts the tale from the time she was staying at an old hotel in Nevada for another case. She was sitting in the lobby area when a woman peeked at her from the elevator. Gal narrates that the woman pulled her aside where she told her she was a former 911 dispatcher from the neighboring town of Cypress, Nevada, where Minerva's case happened. She asked Gal to cover the story of Minerva, who was found lifeless by the police. However, the case was left unresolved and cold. The woman requested Gal to cover Minerva's story because she received a call from Minerva just before perishing. According to Gal, what caught her attention in Minerva's case was a bag of paintings and tapes found in Minerva's trailer which didn't belong to her, but the cops gave it away to her friend. The scene then changes to Luke Wells' narration. He was the first EMT responder who found Minerva's body. Before getting into the tale of Minerva, Luke talks about his life in Nevada. He narrates that he grew tired of his old job, which was at a private firm, due to lack of excitement. While looking for exciting jobs, he came across an open EMT position in Cypress in the newspaper. He thought of it as a perfect place for a guy who loves mountain biking, climbing, camping, and hiking. He thought he would get to help people, run an ambulance, and hike elevated places, but he knew too little. He states that he came across Minerva's case on his second week at the job. As soon as the sun rose after the night Minerva's corpse was found, Luke started looking for jobs out of that town. The scene cuts to the narration of a woman named Dolly, who was one of the fewer residents that lived near Minerva's trailer. Dolly narrates that after Gary went missing, her husband started hearing a weird commotion. One day he looked from his monitor and quoted, "They are back." The scene cuts back to Luke, who speaks of the night when he and his team were on their way to Minerva's house after their boss had alerted them of it. They found the idea of living in such a place very creepy and unsettling, since Minerva was living inside a single-story trailer in the middle of nowhere. When Luke pulled up to the trailer and found Minerva's body, he declared it bizarre because he had never witnessed such a scene. He claims that he found Minerva's body placed in a very unpleasant position, which made things more disturbing for him. In the documentary, Luke associates the fear he produced while seeing Minerva's body with that one incident when he was sent to a warehouse to treat a stabbing victim and his suspect was still on the loose somewhere in the warehouse. He kept looking back in fear of the perpetrator returning. Subsequently, Dolly's narration continues while a compilation of Minerva's pictures and videos is played. Dolly says that when Minerva shifted into the trailer near her place, she thought Minerva was a high school student, but she was shocked when she found out Minerva was in her 30s and had come to Cypress to take a college course. After this, Gal's part of the narration is continued, in which she speaks of tracking down Minerva's only friend, whom the cops had mistakenly given the evidence. Through her friend, Gal finds out that Minerva goes by the name Minnie, who's a half-Korean girl from America. Now, Kathy is introduced as Minerva's friend in the documentary. She starts Minerva's case from the beginning to bring clarity to the story. According to Kathy, it all started when she and Minerva went on a camping trip in upstate New York. The woman who ran the campgrounds turned out to be a geologist. With each story she told about her work, Minerva became enthralled. Kathy could see the spark in Minerva's eyes and could tell how invested Minerva had become in the geologist story. When the geologist woman sensed her enthusiasm, she suggested Minerva take classes in geology. Now, Gal narrates the following part. She states that Minerva started taking geology classes at Brooklyn College out of inspiration. There, she met a former student who told her about a certain semester course that was being conducted in Cypress, Nevada. The semester in the Cypress was a program that worked with various colleges and universities and would bring out students from their towns to Nevada to practically learn geology, because there was a working mine there. The students would get the chance to work with actual geologists. While Minerva separated from Kathy and traveled to Nevada, Kathy was working as a nurse in New York City. Since the friends were far apart, they used to exchange video messages back and forth to keep each other updated. And through these video messages, we can witness Minerva's last moments before she was slain. Kathy continues the tale of Minerva, saying that the hostels of the institute, where Minerva went for her semester, ran out of rooms, so they provided housing to her. Unfortunately, it was a single wide trailer near the highway that the institute was planning on converting into offices at some point. The scene cuts to Douglas, the manager of the mine where the students practiced and learned their course. He confirms the exact location of the trailer and talks about a cement slab, above which a basement was made for the trailer to sit. The mine officials wanted to turn it into offices, but then they sent Minerva to stay for the time being. Next, Dolly's narration about her surroundings takes place. She talks about the open ranch that she took over after her father. Her father had allowed some hunters to scavenge on their land. Their ranch was a hunting ground for years. One day, a rookie hunter showed up and ended up mistakenly shooting Dolly's husband. Luckily, her husband survived, which escalated the issue. She went to the hunters and told them they couldn't hunt on her land anymore, which made them angry. Afterward, they tried to intrude into her land by breaking the fences and breaking the doors of the small sheds they had made for their sheep. She tried filing a report at the police station, but they didn't file her report, saying she must have some kind of evidence against them to prove herself right. Due to this situation, she had installed cameras outside her home and always looked out for her land in case someone intruded. One night, her husband heard some creepy noises. He thought the hunters had intruded again and went out with his camera to catch them red-handed. However, his guts were wrenched when he went out in search of the hunters and ended up witnessing a horrible-looking feral human in the bushes. The scene shifts back to Douglas, who doesn't let the camera crew inside the trailer because it has been set aside for demolishing. However, he speaks of another man named Joseph, living closer to the trailer when Minerva had shifted. Joseph speaks of his life at the time Minerva had settled into the trailer. When he came to Nevada, he was facing a housing shortage, so Joseph lived in his car. One day, on his way back after work, he noticed an empty house 5 miles out of town. Despite having no neighborhood, he found the place livable and settled in there. His dog would occasionally bark facing toward the front door at night. Subsequently, Minerva's video is played, one that she had sent to Kathy. In it, she's seen giving a mini tour of her trailer. She keeps her voice lowered, claiming she has a crazy neighbor, which is why she doesn't speak loud and keeps the curtains closed. In the video, sheet plastics all over some walls inside the trailer can be seen, indicating that there was construction still happening there. This makes Gal wonder why Minerva settled on the idea of living in that horrible trailer in the first place. Joseph's statement continues once again, where he speaks of the night before Minerva had arrived at the trailer. He heard the singing and humming voices of a woman coming from above the hill near his house. He couldn't figure out what was being said because the sounds kept echoing and changing their pitch. Joseph also felt like the sound was coming from different places, so he became alert. When he called his landlord, he found out about Minerva, a geology student who was moving next to him in a trailer. When Minerva came, he visited her and started telling her about the voices he heard last night. Joseph quotes that he could tell by Minerva's expressions that she thought of him as a lunatic who was talking nonsense. Being an intuitive person, Joseph also states that he would get nauseous and physically ill on the nights he felt like he was being watched. Subsequently, one of Minerva's other recorded video messages is played where she's complaining about her physical health that's slowly deteriorating. She says that her eyes bug her, she has trouble breathing, she wakes up in the middle of the night. Furthermore, she can't sleep, but at the same time she can't get up from her bed in the morning, indicating a fatigue in her. She also claims in the video that when she got back to the trailer after her classes, some of her stuff was misplaced and the rest was missing. Even though somebody was breaking into her trailer, Kathy was more concerned about Minerva's health. Standing up for her health, Minerva records her message telling her that she's going to visit a doctor next town. As she visits her doctor, she's told to go back to where she was living and try looking for black mold, a fungus caused by the walls in warm areas. Considering it as a problem to all her symptoms, she goes back in search of a black mold and comes across a mysterious canvas bag that didn't belong to her. Kathy explains in the documentary that she and Minerva didn't care about the bag at that time because they were more concerned about her health. Kathy told her to inspect the bag later and keep searching for the black mold. This is how the bag was never touched by Minerva. When the police found the bag, it gave its way to Kathy along with other belongings of Minerva. The bag contained some graphic paintings and bizarre tapes that weren't inspected by the police. Gal, the journalist, reports that Kathy was devastated by Minerva's death, so she went to Nevada to grab her belongings and her phone. When she opened the bag, she found some disturbing and bizarre paintings and tapes that required a tape player. The paintings mostly showed weird shadowy figures being present on the desert and the dry forests surrounding the area where Minerva's trailer was situated. Gal now reports that Kathy and Minerva had a policy under which they shared each other's passcodes and private information that could be used in case of emergency. This is how Kathy opened Minerva's phone and found clips of her working and doing other stuff. In one voice recording that was recorded 24 hours before Minerva's demise, Kathy discovered the enchanting of a manly figure while Minerva was dozing off mid-work. The sounds could not be heard clearly, but what could be figured out through those recordings was that someone had broken into Minerva's trailer and was present near Minerva while she dozed off. Kathy expresses that she became disturbed after discovering what was happening to her friend there. She didn't go to work and stayed devastated at home. While she was not willing to process the voice recordings, her boyfriend showed up with the tape transfer through which they were able to play the tapes. Among many random clips that were filmed by a man in gloves, one clip showed him standing inside Minerva's trailer and calling someone from outside while Minerva was sleeping inside. The clip showed other victims of the man who didn't appear in the videos. Gal and her team could only identify one of the victims who went missing in the 92nd. In the old tapes, she's seen hanging with the man in the middle of the desert where he has pointed a gun at her back while filming her. There are other videos where the man is recording random pipes and drains inside a structure from where the painful and echoing screams of his victims are being heard. The scene cuts back to one of Dolly's witness stories where she confronts having heard her parents talk about non-human figures walking out on their land late at night. Joseph's confession is played once again, in which he confesses to seeing the shadow of a man in his camera footage that was walking toward Minerva's trailer. He reported it to the police, but by the time they came to check up on her, it was too late. Minerva's final clip is played after Joseph's confession, where she's talking about an insect that's been living inside her trailer walls. She claims that the insect is making a lot of creaking noises. She wakes up and goes to record the voices coming from inside the walls. However, what she doesn't notice is the little scratches on the lower part of a wall from where it has been cut open and placed back again, indicating someone went inside the wall and placed the cutout piece back on it. Soon, something attacks her from inside the walls and her camera falls to the ground. Gal continues her statement after the clip, revealing that the police officer who found Minerva first claimed that the trailer was so hot from the inside that it felt like the furnace was out of control. He couldn't stand inside for a minute, so he dragged Minerva's body outside and waited for the others to arrive. In police reports, hypothermia was diagnosed as Minerva's cause of demise, which is contrary to the alarming things they saw on the old tapes and Minerva's recorded messages, putting an end to Minerva's mystery. Douglas pops up, opening the case of Ameliana, who went missing from the highway. For us to get a better understanding of the road connection, he describes the highway to Nevada, which is also known as one of the loneliest roads in America, because nobody travels through that road. Standing in front of Minerva's trailer, Douglas points out that there is a 5-mile distance to a canyon, which is the entrance of Cypress, the town right below the mine taken over by the geologist. He explains that the highway splits into 2 directions 5 miles down from Minerva's trailer. The left side goes to the town of Copper Flat. About 20 miles out, and the right side takes them to a 2-hour drive to Calian, another city. Upon passing Calian, there's a scenic route to Vegas, which is the route Ameliana took to come back to her ranch in Nevada. This is where her parents were waiting for her, along with her baby. She was to travel by car from Vegas to Calian, and from there to Nevada. Now, as Ameliana's montages are played, her mother, Patricia, narrates the story. She gives a general out view of her ranch location, speaking of it being right off the highway, which is about 30 minutes outside of Cypress. It takes a 4-hour car drive from Vegas to where their ranch is located. Patricia describes that she has made a policy with her family according to which anyone who's traveling through the highway is supposed to stop at the Blacktop, the last area where they get phone signals, and make a call home to ensure they have safely reached near home. This is because after Blacktop, it's impossible to get signals there. Patricia says that it takes 2 hours from the Blacktop to their home, so calling home gives the house members an alarm that the traveling member will be home within 2 hours. And if they don't arrive in 2 hours, the house members must go and look for them. Growing up in a secluded area, Patricia and her husband have come up with several preventative measures and tricks to avoid being in danger. They have made another rule, according to which, if any of their members get into trouble after Blacktop, they must leave their car and hide in the bushes instead of waiting in the car, because that can be dangerous. If they don't make it home within 2 hours, the house members will get alerted and they will come to the rescue. Patricia also speaks of a way to hint to the stuck member. This involves flashing their car lights 3 times so they realize help from home has arrived and can come out of their hiding spot. Now that all the road connections and Patricia's policies are clear, we now dive into Ameliana's story. According to Patricia, Ameliana reached the Blacktop and gave her a call around midnight, assuring she was safe and sound. An hour later, Patricia received a call from her again, in which Ameliana talked about having an issue with her car. Patricia clarifies in the documentary that Ameliana knew the places along the highway well, since she was raised in Nevada. Since she knew every spot along the highway, she realized her car had broken down near Lehman Summit, near which was a mountain with a mining camp at the top. She knew about the mining camp because Patricia and her husband used to take her and all their other kids to that camp. Not knowing it was her last call, Ameliana told her mother that she knew she would get signals at the top of the mountain near the mining camp, so she hiked up to the place to call back home and talk about the issue she was having with her car. Patricia's husband immediately headed out in his car to help, while Patricia stayed on call and told Ameliana to hide in the trees near her car and only come out when her father flashed his lights at her car. After ending Ameliana's call, Patricia called the police and told them about the situation so they'd be looking out for her too. Patricia recalls the night all this happened. For about an hour, she sat near the police scanner that she had on her ranch and waited for any update. However, she claims not to be in a state of panic or worry since she was convinced that her husband would get her back. Getting back to the story, Patricia states how things went down when the police and her husband found Ameliana's car, but not her. They assumed she was still hiding somewhere near the mining camp, so they sent 4 men from the EMT to scan the entire area for Ameliana. Luke Wells was also among those 4 helpers, the same person who had just witnessed Minerva's death. What the cops and her husband didn't notice was that the car's dash cam was turned on the entire time. The camera footage was later retrieved, according to which, Ameliana pointed out a mysterious car that kept circling the highway just to come back to the spot where her car had broken down. Sadly, the dashcam also recorded a shadowy figure that dragged Ameliana to the woods while she kept screaming and begging to let her go. Now, Luke takes over the narration in the ending part of the documentary. Luke explains that he was told by Ameliana's father about their rule of hiding at an untraceable spot. Hence, the team split up and everyone took different directions to look for Ameliana at 4 a.m. while it was still dark. According to Luke, he traced a bushy area and thought of heading there all by himself, believing it to be a good hiding spot. Scouring through the bushes, Luke reached the mining camps that were all abandoned and destroyed at the top of the hill. He didn't give up looking for Ameliana and went inside one of the structures that were severely damaged. As he progressively got deeper into that structure, he started hearing weird sounds coming from outside along with the strong whistling wind. Trembling and shaking, he called his partners but no one replied. He went outside and started looking around. He saw nothing but the voices got to him. He peeked off the cliff using his torch but he couldn't see anyone except the echoing sounds of a woman that would also sound like a speaking child. The voices kept coming closer but he could see no one. Simultaneously, he heard the vicious screams of a woman that haunted Luke. Concerned for Ameliana's safety, he went inside the structure once again where his torch stopped working, so he had to explore the entire area in the dark. Luke expresses his fear in the documentary, saying that he prayed and prayed to God to make it to the next morning so he could get out of this town. The EMT looked everywhere for Ameliana but they could never find her body, just like Gary from the first part of this film. Leaving the cases of the two girls unresolved, the film ends here but our suspicions don't.